Jared?
Yep, we have about 70% of folks who responded, so let's just share the results now. Can you see that, Steve?
No, I can't. There it is right there. Yes. So 65% of you are doing the same or better, and that is outstanding. That is I've taught this, I think this year about 5 times, and every time I've taught it, the numbers get better. So I'm elated to see that. But I'm also focused on those who are not doing the same or better. And what we want to do is, for those of you who are doing the same or better, we want you to continue improving. For those who are not doing the same as better, obviously we want you to continue improving, and we want it such that this time next year, your answer will be same or better compared to this year. So next slide, please. Now, basically, there are 3 primary keys to success for any company. And these are the same keys to success for your company as an entrepreneur, the same keys to success for the big companies that I've mentioned to you before that I'm associated with. And number 1 is that all of you should have the focus on loading up on cash. Amen. Great companies are those that have a strong balance sheet. Mm-hmm. And so what you should all be focusing on is, how do I get as much cash into this company as possible, and how do I keep it on my balance sheet so that you can take advantage of opportunities? So being lean and mean, that should not be your objective. Your objective, balance sheet wise, should be to be heavy with as much cash as you can possibly get. Number 2, and this is now talking about your income statement. The first line item loaded up on cash is your balance sheet, an asset. Now we're looking at number 2, your key, one of the keys to success, and your objective should be to find multiple lines of revenue. That I want to encourage all of you to have multiple lines of revenue. And one way to have multiple lines of revenue is to innovate. Mm-hmm. And at Harvard Business School, what we taught was the fundamental foundation of innovation is to solve a problem and to identify an unmet customer demand. And an unmet customer demand, as you see in number 2, is just basically finding a way to solve a problem for customers. Mm-hmm. And that's the foundation of innovation, ladies and gentlemen.
Did you get some pie?
Okay. Anecdotally, here's some examples. You look at McDonald's and look at the food franchising industry. And McDonald's was one of the first. And, they had that old jingle. McDonald's is our kind of place because it's Ronald's place, puts a smile on your face. It's a happy place. And McDonald's, when they were founded, their targeted customer, ladies and gentlemen, were families. Yep. And the McDonald's business operation model was to build to inventory. That's what they would do. Back in the day, McDonald's would make all of their hamburgers, for example, and I went through the McDonald's franchising program, and I went to McDonald's Hamburger University, and then I pulled out. So I had some familiarity with them. But McDonald's, in terms of their operations, they would make their hamburgers in anticipation of the lunch and the dinner rush. And they would make their hamburgers and then put them in a heat bin, a metal container, and with a heat lamp over it. And so that if you came in to order a hamburger, the person at the counter would simply just reach behind them and get one of the hamburgers and give it to you. And so in that instance, what you saw was McDonald's was building to inventory. All of their hamburgers were exactly the same. Their hamburgers had ketchup, mustard, and relish and onions on it. If you wanted a hamburger with just ketchup, they would tell you to get out of line, and then a half an hour later, you would get your hamburger with ketchup. But the McDonald's operation model was built to inventory, and their customers that they were targeting were families. And then who came on the scene? Burger King. And Burger King was engaged in innovation. Burger King, just like McDonald's, sold hamburgers, french fries, and Pops. We call it Pops in Chicago. Everybody else calls it soda. But Burger King said, and this was Burger King's innovation, and they said there's some customers out there who are unhappy with the McDonald's model. So they said there's some unmet customer demand. And that unmet customer demand is there's customers out there who want to be able to customize their hamburgers. So Burger King's jingle was, hold the pickles, hold the lettuce, special orders don't upset us. All we ask is that you let us have it your way. So Burger King, in contrast to McDonald's, Burger King said, we will customize. And Burger King said we will customize as a form of innovation to meet unmet customer demand. Wow. That jingle that I just sang to you was one that just said, we will give it to you the way that you want to, unlike McDonald's. Yep. So Burger King's operations was build to order. Unlike McDonald's, they were build to inventory. Burger King said, we will customize this, build to order, unmet customer demand. And who did Burger King target as their primary customer? Well, it wasn't families, it was men. Burger King said, we're going after men. That's primarily. Right, they had that didn't mean they wouldn't sell to women, they wouldn't sell to children, but they had somebody as their initial targeted customer, which all of you should have as well, if you haven't defined that. Oftentimes, entrepreneurs will be asked, who is your targeted customer? They'll say, everybody. Well, that's not the ideal. The ideal way is you should know specifically who you're trying to target as your primary customer. And Burger King said, we're targeting men. How do we know that they were targeting men? Well, look at the size of the burger. It was the Whopper. Who other than a dumb man would put all of that beef in his system? Okay. And also look at how Burger King was making their hamburgers. They were doing what was called flame broiled. And the flame broiled was very simple. If you could look behind the counter today, you would see it. And it used to be exposed. Their kitchen used to be exposed to the customers, where you would see they had a conveyor line, and a conveyor line that had an open pit. Open cavities on the bottom of the conveyor line. It was sort of a chain, if you will, a link chain. And Burger King would just put the patties, hamburger patties, on that link chain as it moved through the line. And there were flames that were coming up from the bottom and flames coming from the top, cooking that hamburger. And so that was very for men cooking outside of the grill. And so what has been one of the most pleasurable things that men love to do, and that is grill. As you well know, men grill from our recent holiday. They were out of the beef, they were grilling the poultry, they were grilling the desserts, they were grilling the soft drinks. So Burger King said, we're targeting men. And so what we saw with Burger King was, again, innovation. And then who came on the scene? Wendy's. Wendy's came on the scene. And ladies and gentlemen, Wendy's targeted women. And how do we know they targeted women? Wendy's said, unlike in their commercials, used to say, we never freeze our ground beef. Our ground beef is always fresh. That resonated with women. That's who Wendy's was going after, that freshness. And Wendy's also was the first to offer this, and that is a salad. Wendy said, we are targeting women.
I remember the salad bars.
We have salad bars. McDonald's doesn't presently do that. So Wendy's innovated by, again, identifying unmet customer demand, okay? Unmet customer demand, and then fulfilling that. That is the foundation of innovation, ladies and gentlemen. Another example of innovation with a company, with an industry, was Blockbuster Video. Remember back in the day when you wanted a video, you had to get up off of your couch and then go to your car, drive the car down to a Blockbuster retail store, go into the store, look at video cases on the shelves, pick one, then get in line, pay for the video, get back in your car, drive back home, watch the video, and then forget to rewind it, take it back to the video store, and they charge you for that. Think about that. What I just described to you was what's called the value chain. All of the steps that it took to get that product to the customer and then return. But the value chain, every business has a value chain. And one of the ways to innovate is to identify the value chain, ladies and gentlemen, of a business, and then either compress the value chain, make it shorter, or elongate the value chain, make it longer. So we see that with the McDonald's example. What did Burger King do? Burger King said, have it your way. What did that do? That elongated the value chain.
Let me get one of them
Okay, it was
painkillers
took longer time. Now they had to ask you very specifically, what did you want on your hamburger? Okay, but what we see in the case of Blockbuster Video, who came on the scene? Well, Netflix came on the scene, and Netflix came on the scene back in the day. And what did Netflix do to innovate? Because there were people who said, "Listen, I hate getting up from my couch. I hate getting in my car. I hate going to the store." Netflix said, "We're going to take the same videos that Blockbuster rents. We're going to rent them to the customers. And what we're going to do is we're going to change the distribution channel. So what we're going to do is we're going to compress the value chain. So no longer do you need to get in your car and go to a retail store. We'll mail it to you." So in that instance, Netflix, they compressed the value chain, and that was their way of innovating and identifying unmet customer demand and then addressing. And then who came on the scene after that? Redbox. And Redbox said, "We're going to be ubiquitous. We're going to have red boxes everywhere in your life. Just go ahead and live your regular life, and what you'll see outside of a grocery store, what you'll see outside of Home Depot, you'll see a red box where you can actually rent a video by just simply going about your daily regular life and then paying us a very small fee to rent our video of $1." So what we saw was innovation actually being applied, and those are two industries where innovation was applied, and it evolved and it provided opportunities for entrepreneurial ventures. Ladies and gentlemen, you can do the same in terms of innovating to identify product lines that you can sell, and new service lines that you can sell to generate additional revenue. I want you to innovate. I want you to think about what it is that you can do with your business to identify some unmet customer demand, and then your business supplies that unmet customer demand as a means of finding multiple lines of revenue. Okay? We're going to talk about that a little more very shortly. And then finally, another item on your income statement that you should be focused on, and that's a key to success for you and every entrepreneurial venture and every corporate endeavor as well, and that is to cut your costs, to cut your expenses. That your job as the leader of your company should always be, how do I increase my revenue, and then how do I maintain and cut my expenses. And when we talk about expenses, we're talking about two kinds of expenses. And expenses is a synonym for costs. Cut your costs. Okay? And then under your expenses category, ladies and gentlemen, are your fixed expenses or fixed costs, and then your variable expenses. Now, your fixed expenses or your fixed costs are things that never change. They stay the same no matter how your company grows or how your company decreases in revenue. So, for example, your rent stays the same. Your insurance for your car remains the same. Your salaries that you pay your employees, they remain the same. Those are your fixed costs. Your variable costs, and the word variable is a derivative of vary, okay, which means things change. Your variable costs are expenses that change as your revenues change. So what we know your variable costs include, for example, are your cost of your materials. Your cost of your materials will go up as your revenues increase. Your hourly wages will also be a variable cost. Your hourly wages will go up as your revenues goes up and you're hiring or you're having people work more hours. But your salaries won't, because your salaries are fixed. So those are your three keys to success as an entrepreneur that you must focus on to grow profitably. So with that being said, we're going to do our first exercise together. We're going to have a breakout session. Next slide, please. And the first part of the breakout session is you working by yourself. So for the next 1 minute, what I want you to do is I want you to write down 2 lines of revenue that you created over the last couple of years. 2 new lines of revenue that you created over the last couple of years. And then number B, 1B, I want you to identify 2 new expenditure reductions that you've made over the last 2 years. Okay? So 2 new lines of revenue that you may have created and 2 new expenditure reductions that you create over the last 2 years. So I'm going to give you a minute to write those down. So go ahead and do it, please.
Steve, you want me to open the rooms?
That's it.
Well, let's write this down first.
And once you've done it, just raise your hand in the chat room. Go online and raise your hand to show that you've completed. But you can actually raise your hand. You don't have to go to the chat room. Just raise your hand, but you raise your hand electronically.
It's only 1 minute per person. That's what we're not keeping time.
Is that what he said?
That's what you're not doing. Your groups are not keeping time. That's why everybody is not able to say, participate in the
Oh,
5
you're making a
minutes.
suggestion.
Yeah,
But did you hear I saved $700 for bringing the vote home?
I did hear that. That's on a personal side. I heard that.
Well, actually, but for me too, it's personal, but it's $700 off. It's $100 a month.
Okay, as you finish, please raise your hand. I see
Mhm.
Nikki has raised her
Okay.
hand. I've seen
That's
some
good.
others, but it seems like some others were. Raise it electronically, okay? If you can, Juan, can you go online and raise it?
I didn't want to go out of the country and have that in my heart. Oh my. That's how we lost the other
Go
side.
to the more section up there.
It's got too far under the
Next to the
ground.
participants. You go to more and it'll show you just
Look up
touch
and
the
you owe
raised hand.
$2,000 and your vote is worth less.
Okay, the group selects a spokesperson.
On Zoom, you can hit reactions and then raise
We're
your
not
hand.
in breakouts.
I
Okay.
know, I'm writing down the
Oh, new
steps.
2 lines of revenue, 2 expense reductions, 1 minute collaboration. Each writes his or her list, and then 5 minutes each person shares.
All right,
the
let's begin wrapping up now. What I want you to do
to
now is,
select
and Jared will
Mo-
tell you how to get to your breakout room. I'm going
most
to put
unique
you in
revenue
breakout
expense
rooms now. 4 of you
spokesperson.
will
That's good
convene
for the
together,
breakout groups, right?
and the 4 of
If
you
you don't,
will
if you don't
share
limit
with
your
each other
time,
Right.
your
don't-
2
everybody
lines.
doesn't
Each of you will
participate.
share your 2 lines of revenue and your 2 lines of
I was going to do
expenses
that in the breakout groups.
reductions. And then I
But,
want you to share with the other 3 people what you did. Be very concise. Don't take a long time. And then I want the group to identify
See, he
the
created
best
the
or the most
boundaries for the
exciting
breakout groups, which
Two
nobody else
lines
did.
of revenue,
right, because he's
2
trying to,
expense reductions.
He's been
Done it.
doing this
Okay,
for the
and I want the
longest.
group to identify,
When he
man, that's
introduced
great.
himself, he's been doing
Which
this
2 will
for 10 and a
represent
half
your group?
years for ICCC.
Then I want you to select one
He's
person
retired.
to be the spokesperson for your group. And that spokesperson will report out to the larger group when we reconvene. Now, the spokesperson, these are not to be your lines of revenue, your expenses. These are to be the groups. What the group decide is the best. So the spokesperson, this is not about you. This is about the group. And what we're doing is we're introducing you to a process that we use at Harvard Business School that you should use with running your company as well. And that is getting information and
brainstorming.
feedback and ideas from as many people as you can who are in your company, and
That's
you make
right.
the decision. That old style of managing and running the business, that John Wayne style, is out of vogue. Now collaboration
that's
is
the problem with
important,
Kroger.
and it is
I want to go
imperative
back to
that
work
you
for
learn
Kroger,
how
but I
to
need
get
to
information and
reset Kroger.
feedback and ideas from others. So you're going to go into your breakout groups now, and you're going to be there for 7
The 3 things
minutes.
people complain about.
Okay? Each one of you.
That's what I don't
write
wanna go
down
back
the
to.
2 lines of revenue and 2 expenses. You're going to share those with the other group,
He
and
repeated
then the
it too.
group is going to select the best
Mhm.
and
Everybody
reconvene.
likes
So
to
you
do
have
that.
7 minutes now, and Jared will tell you how to go to your breakout groups.
You gonna send
All right, folks, I'm going to open these breakout rooms and you're going to be sent there automatically. I'll be sending you a 30-second warning and
But I
about
wanted to
6.5
do.
minutes.
I did that yesterday,
Rooms
but
are
she
open.
talked so long. I was like, okay, let me just make her in charge. Maybe she'll let everybody else talk.
Just remember, 1 minute per person.
Right,
Right, I should be the timekeeper.
right.
Time's up. Next.
We're on mic. Got a hot mic. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
All right.
Okay,
Let's see who we got.
how many?
We have our marching orders. Okay. The clock is ticking, you guys. Let's go on and get started.
1 minute per person.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Per person.
Let's go, Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones, you're not ready? Okay, Lana, Dr. Lana. You're not ready. Dr. Lana?
Go to the next.
Marcus Jones, okay. Sister Deborah Boone, you and I, Deborah Boone.
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead. What are your 2 lines of revenue and the ones that you expenses that you cut?
Well, the 2 lines would be added the website shop and
Okay.
then classes.
Okay, website shop and classes. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Now,
And then the expenses, that was a little harder. One that's coming to mind is we had a
Okay.
delivery service.
okay,
Okay,
And actually, it wasn't delivery service. It was the way in which we were working.
okay,
Yeah. So we reduced that expense.
Okay.
Reset or.
okay. You reduced the delivery service.
Okay,
Mhm.
Okay. My 2 new lines of revenue were doing psychological evaluations for the 36th District Court, contracting to do that. And then the second one was critical incident stress debriefing for Magellan Insurance Company and grief counseling. I added that, contracted with them for it was EAP work. And then the expenses that I cut off, I closed one of my offices. Matter of fact, during the pandemic, couldn't even use it. So I closed that. And then the second thing was providing telehealth has cut expenses because I'm not, going to the office every day. I'm doing it right from home, so I don't have to use my car. And so that saved a lot. So
Okay.
those are my 2.
All right, awesome. Next person.
Next person, Brother Marcus Jones. Can you hear us? Brother Marcus, I think people took a break on the groups. Sister Lana M. Are you there, Lana? Lana? Pretty lady with the black jacket? Nope, she's not there. Okay. We caught some people sleeping. All right. So now that's the 2 of us. So out of those ideas, I like that you cut your delivery service as a way to cut expenses because it wasn't profitable. Is that right?
No, actually, that's not the type of delivery service it was. It was during COVID. We couldn't work together. So we were working out of our homes for our sewing projects.
So you're working
So we
remote.
were,
Go ahead.
Were you working
so
remote?
we were engaging Lyft
Okay.
to provide product, and then once the product was finished, we was engaging Lyft to return it back.
Okay, but you cut that off.
We've cut that off, yes.
Okay, because it wasn't worth what?
It just wasn't applicable anymore.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We could- yeah, it wasn't applicable anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a way of keeping our staff healthy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So let's do this. Why don't you be the group spokesperson? Why don't you share that idea and then share mine of closing one office after COVID? I had 2 offices.
Okay.
I closed one and telehealth. Well, if we can use 2, and you can use telehealth by going to telehealth, you could tell them those 3. And then out of the ones to increase revenue, you had
Added
at
website workshops and classes.
website. Oh, I like the classes.
shopping basically.
Website
So,
shop.
an
Okay.
online store.
A website shopping.
Okay. An online store, and then you
Yeah.
get and you're giving teaching classes.
Correct.
Oh, I love that one.
I like to
Yeah,
do that.
yeah,
too.
yeah. So use the. How about the classes? Let's take a vote. There are three of us. Miranda's here. So,
Okay.
well, if we said the top two, I like the classes.
Adding classes.
Adding classes, and then
Online shopping.
and the
too.
online shopping, which is interactive, where you don't even have to talk to them. They can go online and buy stuff. Right.
That is true. But I like the fact that you got a contract with 36th District Court.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can use the psych evals
Right.
and then
Okay.
the classes.
Okay.
Which one do you like better? I love the classes because you're engaging people,
Yeah.
you're educating them, and you're developing
Yeah.
relationships.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so let's use
All
those.
right. So I'll say psych evaluations for 36th District Court and classes, the
Classes.
introduction classes.
Amen. Okay, great.
And then for the expenses, the office expense,
You
I close one out of two, right?
yeah, closed office,
And then
and then
And you cut off
really
you cut off lifts. You cut the
you
lifts
cut
off.
off lift services. Yeah, that really adds up.
Yeah.
You know, we have a daughter out in New York, and she's taking lifts everywhere and here to there. And I said, by the time you add up all those expenses, it might be more reasonable to have a car that's paid for.
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that's true.
Right. Right. And see, you got to realize when you work with another business, they're out to make some money too.
Right.
And
That is true.
they're making, latching on to
Yeah,
making money off you,
We'll be here in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway. Okay.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm looking at you to doing now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Have we gotten Marcus Jones or Dr. Lana back yet? Have we gotten them back? I don't think we have them back. Okay. So they're taking a break. Maybe they're having some chili now. Well, okay. Well, we have what we need to present. I like this guy. He's a veteran of teaching. I like how he.
Yeah, I like them too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very engaging, and I love the how the innovation was applied. That he took actual companies
Yeah,
Right.
that
that
you know
was
that I'm
good.
familiar with.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
It made it
yeah,
good
Amen.
it
learning.
caused me to think.
Mm-hmm.
That was very great. That
Yeah.
innovative
Mm-hmm.
part.
All
Where
right,
is he a
everyone's back.
professor at Harvard?
Oh,
Harvard.
beautiful. Okay,
I want
very
to go to
good.
Harvard.
So everyone's back now, and I think you should have had enough time
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
share your information with each other and select the
She went
best.
to
So we have 9 groups.
the
So
1-year
let's
business
go ahead
certificate.
and get volunteers.
Yeah,
So
we
one
sent our boy
or
from
any
it.
group that like to start, go ahead, and then another group will just follow automatic. Go ahead.
This is Dr. Lana Hagen. I'll volunteer for our group.
Very good.
Nice to see you again, Professor Roger.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I thought she was
So
an
we actually had some technical glitches, but basically, we are already doing a couple of the revenue streams. Some of the new ones that came out was e-commerce, as well as opening businesses for others. So teaching people our own business models. We didn't really get to finish the list, but that's kind of what we walked away with.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next group, please. 2 lines of revenue, 2 lines of expenditure reductions.
I can go, for group 2, we had, one of our, team members owns a, boutique, and she started doing pop-up shops around the city and outside of Detroit, like East Coast, West Coast. And one of our team members runs a nonprofit with like a lot of expensive AV equipment, so they offered their space up for others to rent the services. And then the 2 expenditures was one of our team members had a space downtown that they rented, but they downsized to now just getting mail, and they don't have to go every day. They can get their mail once a week. And the other just went full electronics, so they don't have the expenses of copies and all that stuff. Office supplies, they're doing everything online.
Beautiful. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Group number 3.
Okay, so in my group, one member had 150% revenue increase based on adding new components to her entertainment business or entertainment and party business. The other member added a new component that expanded her design line and her overall product line. As far as the expense cost reduction, one team member had the energy company come in and revamp her lighting and everything with LED bulbs and, you know, making it more energy efficient. The other team member cut costs by, you know, purging and getting rid of her storage costs for displays, and actually creating revenue in that way.
Excellent. Outstanding. Thank you very much. Next group, group number 4.
Oh, hello. There was just 2 of us in the group that we could find, and we were talking that we both were offering new services. The next line would be offering new products in both of our fields to open lines of revenue. And as far as cutting expenses, we both agreed initially on, you know, like eating meals out. I'm on the go all the time. It's easy to go ahead and grab a meal, but that costs, you know, it really adds up. So reducing meals, bringing more stuff from home instead of going out to the easy, you know, fast food place. That's one way of cutting expenses. And both of us also, in both of our lines of work, decided that consolidation of some supplies, not necessarily everything, because certain products pertain to certain, you know, aspects of the job, but where we can save by buying in bulk, that reduces the expenses some, and every little bit helps.
There you go. Beautiful. Outstanding. Thank you. Next group.
Is that us?
Our group decided that we had one person that has a gym, and what she did was offered online classes. So she can grow and build that way.
That's what Deborah said.
The other person, other business owner, has a construction business, and he offers additional services for his clients, so they don't have to go elsewhere.
Why you're on this break right now?
And cutting expenses.
Got a couple people.
Cutting expenses.
I got called today.
Just looking at the employees and making sure the employees fit the mold of the business.
Several. I gotta get my plumbing.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay. Next group.
This is Kimberly. I don't remember what our group number was, but anyway, in our group we had some new revenue streams. Somebody had a restaurant. They start catering, and they also added a food truck service for special events and weekend activities. And we also added charging for estimates in a construction business instead of a free, charged. And we added another service line of flooring in addition to walls and ceilings. Some of the reductions, there weren't really reductions because both companies kind of expanded their business. There were some new expenses like the truck, gas, food costs increases. Also, moving to an office and bringing in an office assistant to support, try and grow. But there were some reductions in insurance providers changing to get reduced insurance costs.
There you go. That's a good one.
Start doing emailing proposals for signatures using DocuSign and things versus actually printing out paper and ink and needing to get our copy signed. And also regionalize walkthroughs. So if someone's calling for a service in their homes, we ask where they are and they kind of have to wait till there was enough clients in that region. So you kind of economize on the gas and the time of using contractors.
Very good. Excellent job. Thank you very much. Next group. I think we have two more.
Okay, this is Deborah. We had two folks in our group, two companies rather, and two lines of revenue that were added was one for the nonprofit organization was site evaluations for 36th District Court. And then the other one is adding sewing and crafting classes in person and virtually. For the reductions, the nonprofit was able to close one of their offices, I think one of three. And then for the sewing business, we were able to reduce the lift cost of developing products to our teammates.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think I have one more group.
That was good. She was good.
There were 3 people that actively participated, but we didn't get a chance to decide on the best solution. So I'll just summarize what people talked about.
2 each.
2 each. Well, finding a new platform in order to get product out to people, and versus people coming to the store. One person expanded to Amazon and Walmart platforms to generate additional revenue. And another person, new product lines within their offerings, since more people were spending time at home, navigating from accessories to home decor, to give people a greater option where they work at home all the time. And then in terms of expense reduction, eliminating memberships, especially during COVID, cutting the cost, eliminating the cost of those memberships, and then eliminating travel, moving to
but he's a for-profit guy.
Excellent job. Thank you very much. And I think that covers everyone. Is there anyone who didn't report? But excellent job. The idea behind this was for you to share ideas with each other in a small group, and then share them with the larger group, and then for all of us to grow as a result of it. State some of those ideas and embrace them yourself, and move forward. So now and that was focused on, and that whole session was focused on cash and how do we maximize the amount of cash that we have. Next slide, please. Now let's move to financial operations and what you should do to operate your company financially for success. And the first thing,
sorry, just want to let you know you have about 30 minutes left.
And grants.
Very good, thank you.
Right.
So
Your first objective as the owner of your company is number one, remain solvent.
Yep.
You need to remain solvent. Okay? And then what you may need to do in order to remain solvent is you may have to pivot. We'll come back to that. Number two, your second objective, and this is what you should think about every week, every month, every quarter, every year. This is how you should be thinking as the CEO of your company. I want to remain solvent. And secondly, I want to cover all of my fixed costs. Okay? That should be your second objective. Cover all of your fixed costs. Now be mindful. When you're covering all of your fixed costs, that does not mean you're not experiencing a loss, because you're only covering your fixed costs, not your variable costs. Number three, your objective should be, I want to break even. Break even means you're not making any profit, but you're not experiencing any losses. And then number four, your objective should be, I want to make a profit every day. I want to make a profit every week. I want to make a profit every month. But that's the line of thinking that you should have. In terms of, number one, remain solvent. That means you might have to do something completely different than what you were doing before. That you might have been, that you need to pivot. You need to pivot to add new lines that we've just spoken about. Number two, cover your fixed costs. And we talk about covering your fixed costs. That's number two, where fixed costs equals your total revenue. Okay? Remember, you have two kinds of costs. You have variable costs and you have fixed costs. Now you're covering your fixed costs. Okay? And your fixed costs, as we see in number two, includes your rent, 2A, your auto loan, and your mortgage, 2C. Okay? But again, even when you're covering your fixed costs, you still may be experiencing a loss because you're not covering your variable costs. But what I'm telling you to do is put your fixed costs as a priority. Number three is your objective should be to break even. And all of you, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you need to know how to do a break-even analysis. Just having passion and saying, I want to be an entrepreneur, that's not enough. You need some actual practical tools in your toolbox to make sure that you are making success and you're making progress. And one of the things you need to be able to do is to do a break-even analysis. So we're going to do a couple of break-evens today. And so break-even is when your total cost, 3A, your total costs, that's your fixed and your variable costs, equals your total revenue. And the break-even formula is 3B, where your fixed cost is your numerator, and then your denominator is your selling price per unit minus your variable cost per unit. Okay? And that's how you come up with your break-even. What is it that you need to do every month to break even? And then finally, your objective should be to make a profit. Number 4, and a profit is when your revenue minus expenses gives you a profit. Okay? It's not break even. So let's look at each one of these individually now. Next slide, please. In terms of remaining solvent, here's some companies that successfully pivoted. I told you you would need to possibly pivot. Here's some companies that successfully pivoted. And these are all blue chip companies we've all heard of. And number 1 is Amazon. When Amazon first started, its original product was just books. They were a distributor of books. They pivoted such that now Amazon sells everything. Yes, Amazon today is the Sears and Roebuck of my days. And that old jingle for Sears and Roebuck used to be, Sears has everything. And we can say that about Amazon now too. And that is Amazon has everything. But they pivoted, okay, from books to a plethora of other products that are readily available today. And just so that you know, Amazon didn't make a profit for like the first 18 to 20 years of its existence. Wow. Okay. Another company that to remain solvent was Kodak. Kodak used to be a film company. Kodak today actually sells generic drugs. But Kodak is a perfect example of a company that refused to pivot at one time. They absolutely refused to sell anything other than film. Kodak, believe it or not, used to actually own the patents for digital cameras. Wow. But Kodak said, no, we're making too much profit off of films. We don't want to promote digital cameras. And so Kodak actually let their engineer take the digital camera, digital technology with them. And so Kodak lost out on that. Wow. And so they refused to pivot. And the result is Kodak actually went to bankruptcy. And today it's a generic company. And then finally, I have number 9, SC Johnson Wax. I mentioned to you that I served on the board of directors of SC Johnson Wax. I was on that board for about 22 years. When it was first founded over 100 years ago, the company just sold floor wax. But then the company has moved on to other things. They are now a full line of consumer products. But one product that ended up being introduced has a story that follows, and that is Sam Johnson was the son of the founder. And Sam Johnson went to see his father, Fish Johnson, and he said to him, he said, I have an idea for a new product. And the father said, the new product is fine as long as it has wax in it. And Sam said to his father, we can put wax in it, but it's going to render the product less effective. And the father finally acquiesced and let Sam introduce the new product. That new product is a pesticide to what we know today is Raid. And so Raid today generates about $100 million of revenue for SC Johnson Wax. But the company pivoted from just floor wax to a broader line of consumer products, including pesticide. Next slide, please. And I just want you to know that pivoting is not something that is only for the big companies. The small companies should do it as well. Here's an article that was written about one of my former students. Her name is Raquel Graham. And Raquel is this inventor, and she had created a product, for example, that skull cap that had a light on the top of the skull cap. You touch the light, and it would illuminate and therefore give you sort of a headlight. But she's invented a plethora of new products. And what this article in Forbes magazine said is the headline, when the pandemic slammed her business, this inventor refused to give up and launched a hot new product line. She started selling masks, and she pivoted from just selling the headlight, the skull with the headlight, to different kind of masks. And all of it has resulted in a phenomenal success for her, such that before the pandemic, She had revenues of about $1.5 million. Today, her revenues are in excess of $5 million. So pivoting is something that is a natural part of evolution for every company, and none of you should be afraid to pivot. None of you should hold to that axiom. There's an old saying, well, just stay in your lane. No, I don't believe in that. Sometimes you have to make sure that you pursue other opportunities. And what did we say before?
So that
pursue
makes
those
sense why
other
I'm
opportunities
restless
by
like I am.
identifying
That
an
makes sense.
unmet customer demand.
Wow, what?
Okay, next slide, please.
Why I'm so
So we said
interested
the
in so
first thing
many,
you should be doing
because I
is
see
remaining solvent. Remain solvent, you have to pivot. The next thing you should be doing is looking to cover your fixed expenses. And I thought a great example of that would be this article that was written in the Chicago Sun-Times in August of 2020. And it was an article about the oldest black rodeo having their 65th year anniversary in 2020. At a time, if you remember, when the economy was on its knees, when a lot of people were not going out, and this was a rodeo that decided we're not going to cancel. We're going to celebrate our 65th year. And so they did it. And as you can see at the bottom of the article, it said by the owner, he said, we paid our expenses. LeBlanc said it was a success. So again, what he did was they didn't make a profit, but what they did was cover all of their fixed expenses and decided to have that rodeo continue. So that was number 2 that I told you that you need to do. Number 3, next slide please, is you need to do a break even. You need to break even. And your mindset should be, I'm going to break even. And remember the formula for break even. It's at the bottom of the page here. The formula is fixed cost divided by selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. And so what you have here is an example of a break even that we can do. And this is Steve's Barbershop. As you can see in line item number 2, the rent is $2,000 per month. And again, all of you need to do a break even for your respective businesses. Some of you may struggle with doing it, but that's okay. I want you to engage in trial and error until you get it right. And that's the way that we teach in Harvard Business School. And that is try. This is not brain surgery. I was a history major in college, and I teach finance now. So all of you have the mental capacity to master this information and this formula. Some of you may take a little longer than others, and that's perfectly fine. So line item 2 shows us the rent, $2,000 per month. That's a fixed cost. That $2,000 per month is there no matter how the company performs. Number 3 is the haircut, okay, $25. And that's the selling price per unit, okay? Number 4, utilities, material, and labor. And labor are the wages, okay? That's $1,000. But that's the variable cost. Utilities go up and down depending on the revenue, because if the revenue is increasing, we probably are using more lights, we're using more electricity, material the same. So those are variable costs. So now we have to look at the number of units. And what we say is number 5, the number of haircuts that Steve gave last month was 200 haircuts. So now we have the ability to calculate the most complicated thing, and that is variable cost per unit, okay? But let's go to number 6 now. And what we see is variable cost per unit, $1,000. Our variable cost was $1,000, number 4. And then we had the number of cuts last month of 200. Therefore, our variable cost per unit was $5. 1,000 divided by 5. And then to do our break even, we go to number 7, and we have in our numerator $2,000, which is our fixed cost, divided by our selling price per unit, number 3, that's the haircut price, okay, per haircut, $25, minus the variable cost per unit, which is $5. So that tells us, and that equals 2,000 over $20. And that tells us our break even is 100 haircuts that we need to cut this month to break even, if we assume that we're going to have 200 haircuts. So our break even, our break even is 100 haircuts that we need to do this month, okay? And again, this is the formula. All of you can master this formula. So what our objective objective should be is, how do we lower our break even? How do we lower our break even? Next slide, please. Well, one way to lower our break even is if we increase the price of our haircut, number one, from $25 to $30. So if we increase the price, what you see has happened, especially over the last 2 years. I used to go to McDonald's and get an egg biscuit that cost $2, and then all of a sudden the price went up to $2.50. So that changed their break even as a result of that. So 1A, if we increase the price, we have a fixed cost of $2,000 in the numerator. And instead of in the denominator, the haircut being $25, now we've changed it to $30. $30 minus the $5 variable cost per unit equals 2,000 over 25. Now we've reduced our break even to 80 haircuts. Now we only have to do 80 haircuts to break even. Another way to reduce or lower our break even is number two, decrease our fixed cost from $2,000 to $1,500. That should be $1,500, not $1,000. So if we decrease our fixed cost, we can also reduce our break even. So 2A shows instead of $2,000 for the fixed cost in the numerator, now we have $1,500, and now we revert back to the old price for the haircut of $25 minus $5 variable cost per unit equals 1,500 over 20. Now our break even is 75 haircuts as a result of us reducing our fixed costs. And then finally, we can lower our break even by doing both, number one and number two. We can increase our price and decrease our fixed costs. So number 3A shows a reduction in the fixed cost from $2,000 for rent to $1,500 over $30 per haircut instead of $25 minus $5. So if we do both of those things, we get $1,500 over $25 equals 60 haircuts for break even. So all of you need to do break evens for your company. You can do it monthly, you can do it quarterly, you can do it biannually, you should do it annually. What is your break even? You should know what is it that you need to do. How much revenue do you need to generate to break even? Okay? And here's the formula right here. So here's the next exercise.
Steve, just so you know, you have about 15 minutes left.
Thank you very much. So next slide, please. So here's an exercise that I want you all to do right now. And I want you to do these individually. I want you to actually do a break even for this restaurant. And here's the given information. The variable cost per meal is $10. Number two, the mortgage is $1,000. Number three, taxes are $500. Insurance, number four, is $100. The equipment loan payment is $150. The meal price is $15. And the retainer that we pay our lawyer every single month is $250. I want you now to do a break even. How many meals does this restaurant need to sell to break even? Again, at the bottom is the formula. Break even formula, fixed cost in the numerator divided by selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. I want you now to do a break even. So take the next 3 minutes, 4 minutes, do a break even. When you come up with the answer, go into the chat room and put the number in the chat room. And I want you, every single one of you, I want you to do it. I want you to try it. In my class, everybody does the work, not just the people who are supposedly knowledgeable about finance. My goal is to teach those of you who are not knowledgeable about finance, teach you the fundamentals of finance. And this is one of them. So you have to try. So again, I want you now to do a break-even analysis.
Total cost. Total fixed.
When you get the answer, go to the chat room and put the number in there, please.
Total fixed cost. We got 1,000 for the mortgage. We got 500 for taxes. We got 100 for insurance.
Okay, I have a couple numbers coming in. I'm not saying if they're right or wrong. Keep the numbers coming in, please.
Okay, total cost fixed. Cost variable. Cost fixed.
Everybody's doing the exercise.
1, 2, 3, 150. Loan payment. Retainer. It's variable. Minus A. It's total revenue. Plus variable. Fixed. Plus variable is 250. That's a variable. Insurance.
Keep working and keep sending me the answers, please.
1, 2, 3. Plus 500. 100 plus 150. Equals. That's 250. Equals 2,000. 2,000. Total cost. Total cost equals fixed plus variable. And then selling price per unit. And then you divide that. Fixed cost or selling cost per unit minus variable cost per unit. Okay. The variable cost meal. A meal price is $15. 2,000. Okay. Make profit. Okay. Break even. Variable cost for selling price per unit. So fixed cost over selling cost per unit. Okay. Selling cost of 15 minus 5. 15 minus 10 equals 5. 1,000 divided by 5 equals 400.
I need 10 more responses. I need 10 more responses.
You send them in the chat.
Send them in the chat, please.
Okay.
Everybody's doing the exercise.
400. 400.
Okay, I got 3 responses. I need 7 more. You can't hide. You got to do it.
So 400. Gotta say 400 minutes.
Okay, 30 more seconds.
Minutes.
right, we're gonna close right now. So the answer, ladies and gentlemen, and most of you got the correct answer. I think 75% of you, 80% of you got the correct answer. The answer is 400, that we need to serve 400 meals to break even. Next slide, please. Here's the answer right here. Next slide, please. Here it is right here. So we see in yellow, the variable cost per meal. That's pretty easily stated, okay? That's our variable cost per meal. And that's typically the most challenging calculation to make, the variable cost per meal. Let me give you a quick hint. That variable cost per meal is typically 30 to 40% of the meal cost, okay? It's typically 30 to 40% of the cost of the meal. Not always, but that's sort of a starting point, if you will, all right? And then what we see in green, we see all of our fixed costs, our mortgage, our taxes, our insurance, our equipment loan payment, and our retainer. Those things are our fixed costs, and those things total $2,000. And then the meal price is pretty self-explanatory, number 6. That's $15. So if we go to number 8, here's the calculation, $2,000, which are number 2, the sum of number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 is $2,000, divided by $15, the meal price, minus the variable cost per meal, $10. Then our break even is 400 meals that we need to serve to break even, okay? So you now see how to do a break even, and the ideal would have been for me to ask all of you to bring in information with your fixed costs, all of your costs, and then you do a break even right here with this exercise, this section. We obviously didn't do that. I've shown you how to do a break even. You know the formula now. Each one of you should go in now. After you leave today, or after you leave this session today, you should say, I'm going to do a break even today or by the end of this week for my company. And go ahead and be comfortable with, you might struggle a little bit, but that's perfectly fine, okay? That's a process of learning how to do it the proper way. But you should know what your break even is every single month. Every year, you should know what your break even is, okay? So,
question.
Next slide. As we close then, here are the takeaways, the key takeaways from this session. Number 1, cash, cash, cash. Load up on cash. Your job as the entrepreneur is to find ways to get cash on your balance sheet. You find ways to get cash on your balance sheet by increasing your revenue and decreasing your expenditures. And that's number 2, develop a financial plan. How do you get those expenses down? How do you get that revenue up? That should keep you up at night thinking about those 2 things. How do I get my revenue up? How do I get my expenses down? Okay. Number 3, use some financial tools. Simply saying passion. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur and I got the passion for it. That's not enough, ladies and gentlemen. You got to have some practical tools. And one practical tool that you've been given today was the break-even analysis. Determine what is your break-even for each month, quarter, year, and then say, now I reached break-even. How do I get to profitability? And then finally, number 4, be mindful. This country needs you to survive, and we need you to thrive, and we need you to be successful. Because as I began this session, I stated to you that entrepreneurs like yourselves are my personal heroes and sheroes because you create jobs, and people who have jobs are self-sufficient. So I'll close with that, and I'll open it up to any questions that you may have over the next 2 minutes before we close out this session.
I have one, Professor Rogers. My accountant had told me that I got to keep the expenses, increase them, because I was getting killed on my taxes because I kept them so low. So this goes against.
So he was telling you to lessen your profits so that you pay fewer taxes.
That is correct. My profits were too high, and I was getting killed that way.
No, let me just tell you, I believe, in contrast to that, you maximize your profits and you find other ways to lessen your taxes. Okay? But lessening your taxes by artificially increasing your expenses is the it's almost it's the contrast to the fundamentals of finance. Okay? Now, if he's telling you to do that by artificially inflating your expenses, that's something that is not legally something that the IRS approves of. But if it's legitimately the whole idea of I'm going to sell a product for $1 and I've been able to buy the materials for 20 cents, now I need to buy the materials for 80 cents so that I only have 20 cents of profit is ludicrous. It's absolutely crazy. Okay? You're always better off maximizing your profit and then finding another way to reduce your taxes. Okay? Now, for example, to that point, one way that companies reduce their taxes, like Microsoft and Facebook, is they actually buy other companies that are not profitable. And those companies, they can actually use the losses for those other companies to go against their profits to reduce their taxes. But you don't see Microsoft, you don't see Facebook trying to minimize their profits. What they do is they find other ways to reduce their taxes. And you can do that by, for example, if you've had losses, your company's had losses in the past, you can do what's called tax loss carry forwards. All those losses that you had in the past, you can bring them up to your profits to reduce your taxes. But you should not do anything to reduce your profits by increasing your expenses, okay? I'm sure he didn't tell you that. You just sort of heard something a little different.
Where does the marketing budget fall into all this, into the break even?
Go ahead,
I'm sorry.
Your marketing budget goes into your fixed costs. Okay? Now think about it. Unless you made your marketing budget fixed, in all likelihood, your marketing budget would be part of your variable costs. Okay? Now that I think about it, because your marketing budget would probably increase as your revenues increase. So it would be a part of your variable costs. Just like you saw with that example, I gave you line items that would go into your variable costs. One of those line items would be your marketing costs, for example.
What I really mean though is, don't you need to spend more for marketing so that you can make more? And
absolutely,
isn't it hard to break even if
no,
you're trying to?
No, if you put that marketing cost in your break-even analysis, okay, what should happen is, as your marketing expenses increase, you should expect your revenue to increase. If it doesn't, then your marketing is not effective. Okay? But you hit it right on the head. For example, you could look at your ratio of revenue per marketing dollar spent. If that ratio does not improve, then you're not doing a good job of marketing. If your revenue is going down, but your marketing expenditures are going up, then that means you're marketing on, possibly, for example, you might be marketing on billboards that nobody sees. You might be marketing on a radio station that nobody listens to. Just because you're spending marketing dollars does not mean that revenues are going to go. The key is it effective? Okay?
Yeah, thanks.
I had a question also about the cash #1 focus. Do you recommend like borrowing cash? Because some people say like you can borrow money and on your balance sheet you show cash that's available, and then as long as you have good terms for repayment, as far as your outlay of cash for the fixed cost, that kind of gives you a stronger position. Is that
outstanding question? And we could have an entire class on this, but as you think about access to capital, when you get a loan or you get investor capital, there's a cost of that capital, right? And that cost, if it's a loan, is interest. So you get a loan and the bank charges you 3%, 5%, 7% interest. The fundamentals of finance says that if you get a loan and your cost of capital is X, that your return on your investment should be X times 2, X times 4, X times 5. there's a thing called a hurdle rate. And that is, you should always get a return that's greater than your cost of capital. So putting money on your balance sheet that costs you 5%, but then you sell a product and the product gives you a return of 3%, that's a bad deal. That's bad fundamentals. Your cost of capital, every company has a hurdle rate where they say, my cost of capital is this, and my hurdle rate is the minimum return that I want to get as a result of my cost of capital. So I'm with some companies, and some companies will say that their minimum hurdle rate is 2 times their cost of capital. So if their cost of capital was 5%, they got a loan for 5%. They said, I will only get loan at 5% if I can sell it, the product now, or sell the service now that gives me a 10% return. Okay? Because if you get a return that's lower than your cost of capital, you're losing money and you're going to go bankrupt. Make sense? So what you're learning is the fundamentals of finance. Passion is not enough. I'll close with this. Here's my book that I'm going to do a shameless plug of. It's called Entrepreneurial Finance. It's the 4th edition. The publisher is McGraw-Hill. The book is written in the same language that I just taught you. I pride myself on teaching practitioners. I don't pride myself on teaching people who have PhDs in finance, but I pride myself on teaching people who have PhD in the practical applications of finance like yourselves. This book, you can get it on Amazon. It's the 4th edition, okay? And this book has all of the stuff that I've just taught you plus more.
Awesome.
And you put your book in the chat so we can get the full title and word.
Great question. Yeah, it's called Entrepreneurial Finance, but I'll put it in the chat as well. I'll have Mary Lee and Jared put it in the chat, okay?
Awesome. Well, once again, I want to thank you, Steve, for yet again another dynamic and engaging session. I think one of the best things about this session is the ability to really take that time to apply these concepts to your business, getting that familiarity with those finances, with your finances, getting that refresh on those key ratios are so important to helping you kind of reach that financial empowerment, have a better sense of your financial health, the financial health of your business. And so with that, it is my pleasure to welcome us to the final component of our Day 2 seminar, which is our resource panel. And this is going to be a great opportunity for you to hear from some of the local resource and capital providers in Detroit and across Michigan to help you think through, now that as I'm looking for capital or I'm looking for additional resources, where do I go to? And here are some people that you can. They're also going to be able to provide you with some additional insights into that capital landscape. So, if you're thinking about impact investors or private equity, what does that space look like? How can you learn more about that, as well as some other resources to help get you to that level. So, Eden, if you don't mind just sharing our slides with some information of our panel, I'll kind of introduce them all and bring them to the stage.
Recording in progress.
Great. So first and foremost, I do want to welcome our moderator to the stage, Ms. Lashana Menegal, the Director of Small Business Attraction and Retention with the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation. She'll be helping to guide this conversation with us. So I'd like to welcome her to the stage. From there, I'd also like to welcome our impressive panelists. The first will be Naveen Shatara, a small business banker manager with Bank of America, helping to represent that traditional banking space and helping you all think through how you can become bankable. Laura Hodgson, the president and CEO of Now Corp, a unique type of operating capital to really help you solve that net 30, net 60 crisis and helping you get that much needed, help solve some of the issues with your accounts receivables. Paul Jones from Invest Detroit, Robert Smith, the founding and managing partner of NUE Capital, and then last but definitely not least, Benjamin Bornstein, the managing director with Arcturus Impact Investors. I do just want to note that Robert Smith is running a little late. He's encountered some travel delays across the South with the hurricane arriving in Florida, so he will be joining us a little bit later. But with that, I do want to bring these panelists to the stage to begin this conversation about helping you navigate the various resources available, what types of resources are best for you and your business at this time, and then ultimately how you can go out and access them. So with that, I'm going to, again, bring some of these panelists to the forefront. I'll get started with LaShawna to kick us off, and then allow the panelists to introduce themselves. So with that, I'll pass it to you, LaShawna.
Thank you, Marinee. Good evening. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here with ICIC Group in this cohort. Thank you for the opportunity to represent the work that we do here in Detroit and to moderate this amazing panel. Again, my name is LaShawna Manigault, Director of Small Business Attraction and Retention with the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, we are the economic development arm of the city. And it's our business to attract and retain talent and businesses, whether they be large or small, to the city. And the work that I do is specifically around serving small businesses and making sure that they are connected to all the great resources that are available, as well as helping them navigate city services and processes so that they can be sustainable in the work that they do. So enough about me. Let's go ahead and get started with this impressive panel. I'm just going to get started kind of with where I know, and I just want to say hello to a lot of you. I see a lot of friendly faces and folks that I've worked with in the past. And so I'm glad to see you all here. I want to first bring up Paul Jones from Invest Detroit and let Paul introduce himself and the work that he does.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, LaShawna, and thank you, ICIC, for putting this together. Really excited to see more support for our entrepreneurs. So by way of introduction, I'm Paul Jones. I work with Invest Detroit. My role is I run a small office called the Business Support Network Office, and I work in close cooperation with the New Economy Initiative. Specifically, we look at all of the different needs that entrepreneurs have post-COVID, during COVID, pre-COVID. I mean, the core needs are out there for entrepreneurs, and then we also look at what the ecosystem of support looks like, and we have a great opportunity to figure out where the gaps are, what organizations are best serving our entrepreneurs. We do a lot of grant making to the organizations that help support entrepreneurs. So I love to hear, tell you about what's out in the ecosystem, and also hear what you need, and make sure that we can direct you to the right resources. And if the resource does not exist, then we uplift the organization to help fill that gap. So excited to hear your stories and to help you out any way we can.
Thank you so much, Paul. That's great. I'm going to scoot over. I'm just going to go in order of my screen, and I have Mr. Ben Bornstein from Arcturus Investors.
Hi, thanks to LaShawna, and thanks to ICIC for including us today. Ben Bornstein, Managing Director at Arcturus Impact Investors. As the name implies, we are an impact investment manager. We have 7 funds that we run. Both private credit, making loans to companies throughout the country, and including the state of Michigan, and opportunity zone funds, which are equity investments in underserved communities and rural areas around the country. We had the 4th of those 7 funds was a Michigan-only fund, so we had a strong presence in the state of Michigan. I'm based out of Chicago, but hail from the state of Michigan, and so excited to be with you guys today to tell you about some of what we look for in our debt and equity investments to companies, and answer any questions you might have about your fundraising going forward. We're based out of Boston, but as I mentioned, we have presence in Michigan, Chicago, and many other cities throughout the country. Really excited to be with you and excited to partner once again with ICIC. Thanks, LaShawna.
Thank you, Ben. Excited to learn more about your organization. Next, we'll move over to Laura Hodgson with Nowcore. Laura, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Hodgson. I am the co-founder and CEO of Now, and I am a serial entrepreneur, just like most of you. We are very different than most folks because we don't represent the two types of capital that most people think of, which is debt and equity, but we do represent the most important source of capital you will ever have in your business. And that's your own cash flow from operations, your own revenue. So I had started a couple of businesses several years ago with my longtime business partner, Stacey Abrams. And as we were growing those businesses and selling into larger and larger companies with larger and larger orders, our customers took longer and longer to pay. And we quickly realized that our business was going to grow out of business instead of go out of business because we were essentially the free bank to all of our customers when they were taking 30, 60, and 90 days to pay. Everyone told us that we could turn to traditional solutions like loans or factoring, but we thought, why are we the ones borrowing money? We're the free bank here. There's got to be a better way. And so we created Now Account, which is the first ever payment system that allows you to choose to get paid immediately when you deliver your good or service to another business or government. So if they're willing to pay you up front with a credit card, you should take it. But if they're not, and they ask for an invoice with net 30, 60, 90, 120 these days, it's like consignment, and you would like to get paid immediately, you simply process the transaction on your Now Account. You get paid the full amount of the invoice immediately minus a one-time 3% merchant fee. It feels exactly like taking a credit card. It is not a loan or factoring. It's completely off balance sheet. So you can use your own revenue to fund your growth.
Wow, that's exciting. When I was reading your bio and the work that you do with Nowcore, I got really excited and I started thinking about a lot of the small business owners that we're working with that need a resource like this. So I'm really glad to have you on the call and learn more about your service. Thank you so much. And Naveen Shatara, Bank of America, welcome to the call.
Thank you. Good evening. Again, my name is Naveen Shatara, and I'm the Small Business Banker Manager for the state of Michigan. So we actually have 11 small business bankers that support small businesses like yourself around the area. And really excited that we have one dedicated small business banker in specifically towards the Detroit market, which makes us, puts us in a very unique position.
She was in business with Stacey Abrams.
Is obviously one of the smallest small business lenders country, and we're really here to support small businesses in terms of growing, expanding. If you're looking to purchase equipment, software, really getting, maybe you're leasing a space, you're looking to purchase a building. So anything lending related, we're here to support, but not also limited to lending. So if you're looking for some advice or you need access to resources, how do you open your first account, maybe try to establish some business credit, you know, come to us and we'll definitely be able to try to point you in the right direction.
Very good. Thank you so much. Glad to have you on. And as mentioned earlier, our other panelist, Mr. Robert Smith with New Capital, is having some traveling delays, but he should be on shortly, but we'll be happy to introduce him when he comes to the line. So I'm going to just circle back, and I'm going to start with Paul Jones from NEI Invest Detroit. And I want to talk to Paul from a technical assistance standpoint and just find out what type of resources does Invest Detroit and New Economy Initiative have. You're kind of a hybrid situation where you're working with technical assistance as technical assistance providers, but you're also connected to a CDFI, non-traditional funding institution. Tell us a little bit about that and what opportunities are available.
Yeah, that's a great question. And just do a little context setting. So I work with, like I said, Invest Detroit. Invest Detroit is the largest CDFI in Detroit, perhaps Michigan, if not the largest second. And CDFI stands for Community Development Financial Institution. It's a unique type of entity because it means that it's a designation that's given by the Treasury that says we're committed to doing what we call mission-based lending. And that means for Invest Detroit that we're able to provide capital to entrepreneurs and in the real estate space as well. You may not be available. You may not be in a position to get capital from traditional funding sources. So I know that, you know, many of the banks, including Bank of America, they do a great job in terms of being flexible and meeting where you are. And, but sometimes you still may not be ready for a Bank of America or a traditional bank. And we work closely with those type of institutions.
I would like to work with them. I'm going to say something when I get back,
help you,
but I want you to take the note.
I'm
just not, you know, my credit isn't ready for that.
You're not quite there yet.
As soon as they look at
you, and that comes in the form of providing debt-based financing. And also, I think what makes us truly unique is that we're able to not just provide the funding, but also provide technical assistance to help you get capital ready, and also post loans to help you stay in the position so that
find out what you need to do and how you can use your business credit versus your personal credit.
And can get to traditional banks.
And how can you find that out? How you can use your business credit versus your personal.
You gotta clean up your personal. They don't give you no business credit to your personal cleanup. That's what Dr. Gladden's been on me for 2 years. She said, girl, you gotta get out there debt. You can't get no business stuff. They're gonna look at your personal file.
And some of that we do in-house.
So you clean that up, you're on your way.
Good partners in our community that specialize.
That's why I'm counseling, retiring on my personal debt.
Ready. Most of the resources that we would direct you to are at low cost or no cost because they're subsidized by grant making. And that's what I do with my other hat through the New Economy Initiatives is providing different organizations with grant making so they can provide entrepreneurs with resources at low cost or no cost. So I would say that there's very rarely a situation where you can't get capital. You may need to do a little bit of work on your side to become capital ready. So you may need to do a business plan. You may need to get your financial statements in place and use QuickBooks or Wave or some type of accounting system. You may need to do some financial projections. If that sounds daunting, then again, have no fear. There's still some free resources out there that will help you get those things in place. So then you can get some funding, whether it be traditional or non-traditional funding, and get the capital you need to grow your business. So I can get you a laundry list of different community partners we work with, but I have 30 plus organizations that we provide grant funding to work with entrepreneurs like yourself to help you get all of your stuff in place so you can get funding. And those are from organizations that help you go through a retail boot camp at Tech Town, for example, to Accounting Aid Society helps you get your accounting records in place, and across the board, design services, whatever you need. There's a business support organization out there that we can refer you to get that. Invest Detroit, I would say, is again, we do non-traditional lending, so we provide you with loans, whether it be from real estate to just a startup loan for your business. We also have a private a venture cap side. So if you are not interested in loan, we're looking for more of something in the equity space. Anything from $10,000 to $500,000, we do equity investment as well. So we are a full service suite, but again, we're also provide you with wraparound services so that if you're not quite ready to come to us, we can make sure you're hooked up with the right technical assistance provider to get you there. And once you do get your funding, we don't, we look at
ideally need about 200,000 to put a lien on somebody's property.
Even after you get your loan, so that you're not sort of lost out there on your own. We want to hold your hand throughout the whole loan process from start to after, and make sure that you're well on your way to grow your business to that next multi-million-dollar idea.
Very good. Thank you so much, Paul. That's a lot of great information. I hope everyone is taking notes. We're going to circle back at the end with questions, but I want to move through the rest of the panel. And Ben, Arc'teryx Impact, tell us about a little bit about your product portfolio, your products and services for small businesses.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question there, Lashana. So if you think about it, we actually are somewhat in a similar boat to all of you in that we have investors who put their money into us as steward of their capital to find a good home for it. They're investing in us as a business, just as we in turn are taking their capital and investing both equity and debt investments in companies like those that are here today. So when I say that, our credit funds, we've raised a pool of money, and in some sense, similar to a bank, we are loaning that out and hoping to get paid back and generate a return on that money and pay back our investors. Unlike a bank, however, we tend to be a little bit further down the risk spectrum. In most cases, the companies that we work with have already taken on bank debt. They may have exhausted the amount of money they can get from a bank, and we're sort of the next level of capital, or they may have not been able to check all the boxes to access bank capital, in which case we as a private investor can take on a little bit more risk. Oftentimes it's slightly more cost to find a workable deal that works for your business, gets you funded, but also produces a viable return, as Professor Rogers was talking about earlier. So that's on the credit side. And one of the ways that we've done this that's different than others is we partnered with the state of Michigan on our, we have an Arteris Michigan fund through something called the MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Company, and a fund that they run called MSF, Michigan Strategic Fund. And what we've done there is we've created a partnership, a public-private partnership, where the state has one set of economics, and the other investors in the fund have a different set of economics. In other words, the state picks up early losses if there are any in the fund. What does that mean for you guys as recipients of capital and loans? What it means is we can take on a little bit more risk. We can offer funds at a little bit lower interest rate because we have that public backing, or sort of mission-driven backing from the state, who has a mandate to look out for its citizens and businesses and economic activity. So for us, that's how the structure works on the debt side. In terms of what we're trying to do and the companies we're trying to invest in, they tend to be in the camp of either urban or rural communities. So they're underserved in a variety of ways in both cases. They tend to be typically minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. And so in the state of Michigan, that's meant we've been in Detroit, we've been in Flint, we've been in the Upper Peninsula. We will invest in a broad range of operating businesses. We will invest in broadband technology, lighting up parts of the state that don't have access to broadband internet, which you all know how important that is. And we will invest in real estate projects selectively as well. When the Opportunity Zone program came along 3 or 4 years ago, many of you have probably heard of it. It's a tax advantage program for the investors. So by itself doesn't have anything to do with you as the recipient of capital. But what it does have to do with you as the recipient of capital is it's lowered the cost of capital for funds to go into businesses, and can, all else equal, can offer you equity arrangements at more favorable terms than they otherwise could have. So it essentially opens up a bucket of capital to you. It is linked to particular zip codes. So you can easily Google up your area, whether it's in Detroit or other parts of Michigan, and find the zip codes that are opportunity zones. If you're in one already, great. You have a lower cost of capital for accessing equity capital. If you're not in an opportunity zone already, there are a variety of ways, depending on the nature of your business, that you can get there. And those are based on headquarters, asset tests, things like that. And we can work with companies to even relocate into an opportunity zone, as we recently did with a auto seating manufacturer that wasn't in an OZ, and we were able to get them into St. Clair Shores into an OZ. OZs are scattered throughout the state. It's important to think about whether you are ready to give up a piece of ownership of your business. That's the equity side. Now, we or whatever other equity partner you have own a piece of your business, but in exchange for that, there's no debt to pay back on that. If the business doesn't work, we all lose together. If the business works, we all win together. So it's not necessarily good or bad to have equity versus debt. You just have to think about the economics of that. On the debt side, you will pay back that loan with interest, but you still own your whole business. So if you're very confident that you can generate cash flow to cover the cost of your debt, very often you're better off to do that and hang on to the equity of your business. The only time that I would advise against that is if you can find a strategic partners, not just money, but someone that can get onto your board, that can make introductions that help your business succeed. And in many cases, Arteris tries to be that partner to our portfolio companies. So maybe I'll just pause there, but that's those are the two types of securities we offer, the type of partner we are, And we're excited to hear from some of you guys after this panel. Thank you.
Very good. I think it's you mentioned MEDC. I know we're all familiar with MEDC. We work partner closely with them, obviously being here in Michigan. And I think that lends to obviously the credibility of the work that you do and the opportunities that you offer. Thank you so much for that information. Laura, NowCorp. I've been waiting to hear about these invoices and how you can get paid on, pay accounts payables and things of that nature. Share some more information on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was going through this challenge with my last business, one of the things that I had to recognize was we often get so caught up in the need for capital that we forget what we're really trying to accomplish. Your goal is never to raise capital. Capital is the means to the end. Your goal is something else. It's to acquire a customer, buy a piece of equipment, expand a facility. That's your goal. And that's really what dictates the type of capital that you need, because there is no one source of capital that will solve all your business's needs. So you should always look for the and, not the or. And that was the challenge I was going through, that Stacy and I were going through with our last business, when everyone was just trying to sort of tell us to use the same sources of capital that everybody always tells you to use, instead of really understanding what our need was. And our need wasn't to buy a piece of equipment. Our need was that our clients were taking forever to pay. I mean, we joked that net 30 was really just net pay me when you feel like it. It was like a suggestion because people were not paying when they were supposed to. And that really constrained us, because we owed our suppliers and we tried to get them to give us extended terms, but we also owed our employees, and employees don't like to be paid net 60. They like to be paid every 2 weeks. And so it was really that constraint that caused us to, instead of just doing what everybody said, we said, well, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way. Our constraint is that we're waiting on our customers to pay us. We can't solve that by borrowing money. I mean, we can go borrow money, but then we're going to borrow money at some cost greater than zero and turn around and give it to our customer for free. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Right. And so we just kept thinking, how can we accelerate the inflow of the actual revenue, not borrow against it, not factor it, but how can we actually accelerate it? And there's one way that's been around for decades to accelerate it, and that's to accept a credit card. Because when someone hands you a credit card, when you swipe your card at Kroger or whatever grocery store you shop at, they get paid that day or the next day. And it's not a loan. It's not factoring. They get their actual revenue from Visa. When and if you pay your Visa bill is not their problem, and it doesn't affect them. So the credit card inspired us to come up with a solution that worked for B2B. And so the way Now Account works, again, if you can sign up for a Now Account. It takes less than 2 minutes. You give us basic information on your business. We do not collect any personal information. We do not look at personal credit. Give us basic information on your business. Within 24 hours, you'll get an email saying whether you're qualified or not. We approve the top 65% of businesses in the country. If you don't qualify, we will tell you how to get qualified. So it usually just means that you don't have a record in the database that we're looking in, and we'll tell you how to get that. Once you have your Now Account, it's yours to use when and how it makes sense for you. So some of our clients say, we're just going to put all of our clients through Now Account because we don't even want to deal with accounts receivable. You wouldn't have any anymore. With Now Account, you get paid in 2 days. So your DSO goes from whatever it was to 2 days. Some of our clients say, well, I already have an accounts receivable department, so I'll put some of my bigger invoices on Now Account. That way I know I'm getting paid enough to cover my payroll and my expenses, and the rest can come in when it comes in. Totally up to you how to use it. So once you have your Now Account, you tell us which customer you want to use it with. You put that in the app. You get an immediate yes or no back, and we approve, I think it's 93% of the customers that you put in. If we say no, you now know something you didn't know before, I highly recommend upfront payment. Because if we say no, that means that customer is a big risk for you. So we also give you intelligence. If we say yes, great. When you deliver your good or service and you get ready to invoice your customer, you just upload a copy of it into your Now Account app. Once the invoice is in there complete and we can get it confirmed, you get paid immediately the full amount of the invoice minus a one-time 3% merchant fee. So it feels exactly like someone handed you a Visa. You book your revenue as cash and you book a 3% expense, totally off balance sheet. There is no liability, contingent or otherwise, ever booked. So the beautiful thing about Now Account is when you use it, you will grow your business exponentially. You can go after contracts you could never go after before because you know you're going to get paid in 2 days. You can take on larger accounts and your balance sheet rocks because you have a ton of cash, no accounts receivable, and no liability. So when you walk into any lending environment, you're the best balance sheet they've ever seen. You can actually be a better borrower because you have a better balance sheet.
Wow, that's amazing. That sounds like a great solution.
We should have called it WOW, but it's Now.
I had a chance to look at your website. It looks like you have a lot of great customers and clients that you're working with on there. So kudos to you. That sounds like a great opportunity for some folks that are in that situation. Okay, great. And so now, last but not least, we're going to speak to Naveen, who represents Bank of America. She is our traditional lender here on the line. And so, Naveen, if you could just speak to some of the products and services that Bank of America offers to support small business owners in this space and access to capital.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we are a traditional lender, right? So Bank of America, we typically in my space for small business, we're working with small businesses anywhere in a revenue space between 100,000 up to $5 million in annual revenues. And that's just for traditional lending. So if we're thinking lines of credit, commercial real estate, term loans, things like that, that's the requirement in terms of the revenue size. 2 years in business is what we're looking for. So if it's a startup, unfortunately, that's something that we're not able to lend to currently right now, unless it's some sort of something in the medical field, then at that point we can definitely take a look at that. We do have some really nice lending options in terms of we have a variety of secured and unsecured lending because we recognize that some smaller businesses, they may not really have any assets or collateral. So we are willing to take a look at your liquidity, your assets, your credit. So it's really important that even if you're not 2 years in business, that you are working to establish your small business credit because that is critical for the future in terms of financing, as well as taking care of your personal credit. That's huge. And I know that the professor earlier was talking about cash. Cash is king. So